here's Brody Brazil.
You know, I'm really interested to see the traction this story gets here and now, but also the impact and the waves it makes moving forward. Because on one hand, and no offense to anybody depicted here, but these are not the biggest names and or faces of baseball or Major League Baseball. However, this storyline and what they did and how it's being handled, all of this is one of the bigger headlines across Major League Baseball in at least the last several decades. Multiple betting scandals, multiple different penalties assigned to these players for their respective gaming endeavors. So let's dive in one by one, player by player, talk about who they are, what they did, and then eventually I'll get to some takeaways, the bigger picture of all of this at the very end. Tucupita Marcano placed 387 baseball bets. This totaled more than $150,000. This happened in October of 2022 and between July and November of last year. Of those 387 bets, that's a lot of betting in a relatively short time span. 25 of those bets were Pirates related while he was a player on the active roster. Now they say, Marcano and baseball say, that none of the bets had influence on the actual game results. He and baseball are both pretty adamant about that. However, baseball has handed Marcano one of the biggest penalties in about a century. He's the first active Major League player in a century banned for life for betting on baseball. The last player was Jimmy O'Connell of the New York Giants back in 1924. Yeah, you do the math. Here we are exactly 100 years later since the last player was banned for life for betting on baseball and or sports. Now, basketball just had a similar instance. We can dive into that story some other time. But even the NBA this year had to ban a player for life for betting on their own games and having some kind of impact on those wagers. So that's the biggest sentence, so to speak, thus far. Michael Kelly has been suspended 1 year due to Rule 21 of Major League Baseball. He placed 10 bets on 9 Major League games while as a minor league player. The bets he placed included those on outcomes, over-under on runs, and pitcher strikeout totals. He is a pitcher, by the way. Wagers totaled $99.22. Winnings totaled $28.30. It's amazing that small dollar amount and the decision to wager for Michael Kelly results in a year out of baseball. And we'll talk at the end of this, what does that mean for all these players? What does it mean for their reputation, their career? Is this a small blip on the radar? Or is this a big speed bump in the rest of their career? But it's just amazing. Somebody puts all the effort into keeping themselves performing right and healthy to a certain degree and competitive to get into a Major League Baseball pitching situation, and all of it risked because of $99, $100 of betting on baseball and sports. Jay Groome suspended for 1 year also. 32 bets between July of 2020, so mid-pandemic, through July of 2021. 24 of those 32 bets were on the Boston Red Sox while he was with the Red Sox single-A affiliate. And you are going to notice kind of a trend here that a lot of these players were in the minor leagues and or hurt, so they had free time or they were just not at the major league level, but they were betting on their associated major league team, which is interesting. Does that mean they thought they knew something? That they had an edge on these bets, or they were just more interested in their own teams? Why, of all things, would you literally bet in your own backyard? First off, betting is against baseball rules for players. These were all mostly, from what I understand, legally placed bets. Like some states, it's not legal, but these were placed legally in terms of, just being a citizen of the United States, but illegally in terms of baseball rules for the players. But interesting, right? Why bet on your own ecosystem instead of, if you just want to bet on something, bet on a different sport? Jay Groome wagered $453.74 on 30 Major League Baseball games. It resulted for him in a net loss of $433.54. You're also going to notice that trend. A lot of these players did not even find any kind of success on the relative small amounts they wagered. Jose Rodriguez also suspended 1 year. 31 bets on baseball from September of 21 to July of 2022. 28 were on Major League Baseball. Mr. Rodriguez also placed 3 bets on college baseball. 7 of the bets were on the Chicago White Sox, including bets on outcomes and total runs scored, while he was on the White Sox minor league AA roster. Again, betting on the same franchise that you're in the ecosystem of. I don't understand that. Maybe there has to be something to that commonality here. I just don't get it. He wagered $749.09. No result of the record of how much was made or lost or earned, but $749. Again, sub $800 of wagering, and it's going to cost him a year of his career and maybe more. Andrew Saalfrank also suspended 1 year, 29 baseball bets from September of 21 to March of 2022. 4 bets were on the Arizona Major League team while he was part of the low A farm team. His baseball bets totaled $445.87. He lost $272.64. Andrew won 5 of his 28 Major League Baseball bets. Here is a professional baseball player who might know some things, who you would think at least knows the situation and has a background in this. Like, they're a professional. If I needed plumbing advice, I might go ask a plumber. What do you think about my sink situation? And you'd think they'd give you good advice. Here's Andrew, who is a big league ball player or is a professional ball player at the time of making these bets and won just 5 of 28. So what should that tell you out there? Average Joe or Jill. What should that tell you about sports betting? You're not even a professional at this, and even the professionals aren't winning to any certain degree. So let's now get to some of my takeaways, beginning with the fact that this all came out at once. I know Major League Baseball had been doing an investigation. I had been hearing behind the scenes some rumblings of you're going to find some things out of more players, and everybody thought, oh, it was the Shohei and Ippei situation where Shohei's translator and interpreter, Ippei, was caught basically for taking Shohei's money and for wagering on sports. But that was a big deal, and everybody thought, well, that's somebody on the inside. Ippei is in all the meetings, is behind the scenes with all the players. There's somebody on the inside wagering on sports. So that was separate from this, how all of this got announced at once. And it makes me kind of wonder if baseball did this on purpose because it's easier to tackle and address and put out there in the world and then try and move on from. I mean, what if it was between these 5 players, player 1 today, player 2 next week, player 3 the week after that? I think the public reaction would be, we've got a bigger problem than if you just kind of get it all done here, now, and today. In my opinion, very strategic to come out with all of this at once. I understand it all might have been part of one large investigation, but the fact that it was unveiled all at once, I think, is to make it for baseball as a business easier to tackle and move on from. Is it also time to admit now that we might have some gambling problems in sports? Not just with the athletes or the participants of professional sports, but also the audience. I mean, think of this news 10 years ago. I don't even know how much this is going to rock baseball, so to speak. And like I said at the beginning, maybe it's because these aren't the biggest names and faces that you would expect to be involved. And maybe even the Ohtani chance that he was part of gambling is a bigger story than these 5 players because he's just a bigger name. But the point is, the technology has changed, betting has changed, it's legal in so many places, but still illegal from a player perspective to do as it relates to Major League Baseball. So the access is there, the ability to bet and wager is so frequent, but still not allowed for players. And so my point is, we're kind of going into uncharted territory of sports betting and having it be so available to the general public and players. Do we even know what we're doing yet? And is it time to say, wait a second, I know a lot of people are making a lot of money, but do we have a problem with sports gambling in sports society? On that note, I truly feel like right here, right now, at the beginning of June 2024, we're just starting to uncover a bigger problem. This announced today, 5 players from a couple years ago, all these bets were 1 to 3 years ago. This could very well be just the tip of the iceberg. You think none of this stuff has been happening in 2022, 2023, 2024, and won't continue into 2025? What we found out today could be just the first shockwave of all of this. It might run significantly deeper, just a little bit deeper. Who knows? But I don't know that anybody could sit here and say, well, everybody's been addressed. The situation is done. We don't have to deal with this anymore. You know that's not the case. That's not how it goes. For the players suspended 1 year via Rule 21, the 4 of them, what does this mean? I mean, obviously, if you've been suspended and banned for life, we know what that means. That's a very unfortunate fate. It only happens once about 100 years. But sitting out a year can be detrimental to your playing career. Can't participate, can't be near big leaguers, can't pitch to hitters of that level. I mean, what is that setback going to be? Also, what will the reputation of those players turn out to be? Now, in the case of what they did, let's be honest, betting $100 on things, but that's also part of the issue. There's two sides of this. You could say, well, they bet a couple $100 on sports. It's not that big a deal. That doesn't impact who they are or their performance on the field. That's true. But in a sense of decision-making and character, and yeah, maybe some of these gentlemen learn from their lessons. And maybe forgiveness is important in this case. It's also true. But I think from a reputation standpoint, this cannot bode well for somebody who misses a year and has this kind of going against them in terms of any big league future or professional baseball future with a different team or franchise. And my last one here is, so if we're not going to admit that we have a problem in sport with gambling and the evolution of it and how the push is a lot more, are we ever even going to think about toning down the gambling push and the narrative associated with MLB products? Because, like, if you're watching a game during this next week when 5 players just got suspended for a year or banned for life, and it's the 7th inning stretch, it's time to talk about betting on the next game. Does that come across the same way? Let me give you a real quick comparison here. It's written into the contracts of a lot of airlines, and this is a worst-case scenario. Should they have some type of accident or incident, all of their TV commercials, all of their advertising on publications and social media, it's instantly retracted and taken away, because the last thing you kind of want to hear after something bad happens, an accident, right, is, hey, you want to go fly somewhere? And I'm a pilot, I'm into aviation, so that's why I'm choosing this as kind of the analogy here. It's kind of written in like that. But are you going to see any less push or talk of betting products? Probably not here moving forward. It's a business. So baseball and its partners are going to have to figure out, how do you navigate these situations moving forward? I don't know that the push is going to be toned down, but how can it be a little bit more appropriate, given the fact that they just uncovered 5 players who were betting on their own big league team when they were in the minor leagues, or the team they were actually on, certainly betting in their own sport. I think a lot of this is more forgivable if they were betting on golf, or they were part of a fantasy football team. Well, fantasy football is allowed, but betting on football games, like, it's just so much of an easier conversation if you're doing it outside of your own realm. But that kind of lets me know that there might be some issues here. They knew about these rules. None of this should be a surprise. These are not mistakes. I don't know if it's a scandal. I guess that's what everybody's calling it, but these are huge mistakes. And now baseball might have more of them to deal with. I guess that's what time is going to tell. You've made it to the end of this video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me in this video, in this channel. And you know I want to see you back here next time. So do me a quick favor. Go down below right now. Hit that subscribe button. That guarantees me that I get to see you next time around.